coming from sailing, actually. So what could be better? The class has been going a very long time, as every fin sailor knows. So it's very hard to genuinely say whether you've made a contribution to the class or not. But I like to think that, you know, I inherited the presidency, if you like, in very challenging circumstances post-COVID. And I think we weathered that storm very well as a class. I think we had made some big decisions at the time of my election as president. And we've made a commitment to run a Gold Cup in Miami, i.e. outside of Europe. We've done that successfully. It could have been bigger, but most importantly, it fulfilled the #1 objective of taking a Gold Cup outside of Europe from my perspective, which is to see the enthusiasm and the growth in the American fleet. And, you know, that's now in a very healthy position, lots of interest, lots of enthusiastic sailors. And I think that's a great outcome for Miami. So we've achieved that. I think, as you would know, and hopefully many sailors would recognise, we've got an improved presence on social media. I think that's important. We're aspiring to connect our community together, but also to connect and engage with the younger end of our community. And that's, let me just say very honestly, that's a work in progress. And we've run some fantastic events since then. You know, I think Kavala, Balaton with challenges with the weather, and clearly, you know, we had some great times in Europe last year in 2022 together, which were very exciting. And I think as an executive committee, we put together a great calendar for the years ahead. And we continue to attract sailors into the class, and we're growing, and the events are great. People are loving their fin sailing, builders are busy. So from my perspective, whilst I think there's more work, a lot more work to do, I think we're trending in the right direction. For me, the most important things that we need to work on are, one, keeping together as a community, building and continuing to build the brand around the prestige of our events. Being the world champion in fin class, you know, is an amazing achievement. It needs to remain one of the greatest achievements in sailing. And to do that, we need to sustain the level of competition in the class. And to do that, we need to keep bringing people into the class, whether they're under 23, whether they're under 30, or whether they're under 40, whether they're under 50, or whether they're legends or super legends. We need to bring in people that aspire to want to compete, enjoy, engage with their fellow fin sailors wherever they are, and do that with the confidence that they can make an investment in a fin. And it's a very solid investment from a technical perspective. That investment's protected, that the class is well managed, and they continue to enjoy their fin sailing for as long as they can. You know, and that's what every member of the executive wants to achieve, or, you know, being very upfront and honest again, not achieve, maintain. So the concept of stewardship is very important to all of us. Chronological order. You know, looking ahead with the calendar that we've got, which is not exactly as we anticipated it would be. As many would know, we wanted to have a Fin Gold Cup in Anzio originally, and for whatever reason that didn't happen. Let's not dwell on that. We've got a fantastic 2024. Punta Ala is an amazing facility with the camping. We're right on the beach. You know, from my perspective, we've got a Fin Masters, World Masters in Tuscany, in Italy, on the beach at Punta Ala. We've got an amazing resort there on the beach. We've got camping for everyone. We're all going to be together. The sun's going to be out. The waves are going to be up. And there's going to be good breeze. I don't think you could ask for much more. Punta Ala will be a huge event. When we look further ahead into the year, we've got the Fin Gold Cup in Aarhus. Aarhus, which is we're running it out of the Danish Sailing Centre, which is a new facility that was purpose-built for the 2018 World Sailing World Championships. The last time we visited Aarhus with the under-23 World Championships, I think from memory, 2017 or 2016, we didn't run it out of that centre as it hadn't been completed. So the Aarhus facility is fantastic. I can foresee a very, very good Gold Cup, a variety of conditions. not an overwhelmingly large sea state, but certainly challenging, certainly some current from my memories of the World Sailing World Championships. And I think very accessible and very well timed following the German National Championship, which I think takes place close to, on a lake not too far away. So we should get everyone there. And certainly the talk around the Dinky Park, even here in Australia, is that we all want to come to Aarhus and experience it. Cannes will be very popular as the Europeans. Great location, late in the year. I don't know if some of our followers will have seen the amazing footage of the Star Europeans, which just happened there, similar time frame. You know, we could expect anything breeze-wise. Cannes has a great historic connection with the Finn class. As we all know, it runs the traditional, back in the 80s, showing one's age. Back in the 80s, it used to run what we call Cannes Ski Yachting, which was the first major Olympic regatta on the calendar. And of course, the yacht clubs could successfully run for many years a very early regatta in the February period. So we've got a big connection to that yacht club. It's going to be an amazing event. What you couldn't really ask for much more. The intention at this stage is to run the Under-23 Silver Cup as part of the Finn Gold Cup in Aarhus. And obviously, you know, if I look back to, you know, some of the work that needs to be done, clearly we've all got a big responsibility to generate interest in the Finn amongst younger sailors. We did have a Silver Cup this year. We had very few entries. We don't think it's sustainable as a standalone format at the moment. So we will wrap the Under-23 World Championship, if you like, the competition for the Silver Cup into the Finn Gold Cup, which takes place in Aarhus. I think it's really, I mean, I think a couple of things on that. I think firstly that, you know, clearly one of the things that's been launched, and I have to say a lot of work by Robert and Christian and other members of the executive, has been the ranking and the World Tour of Finns. And to make that successful and to make our events, or for our events to continue to be marquee events, we all need to work together. And what that means really is that all of our individual country associations need to work together to ensure that the calendar makes sense. And that means that you can do a world championship, you can back it up with doing lesser events, national championships as training events, that there is a logic to the way we put the calendar together. And I'm very grateful that in the main, we've got a lot of harmony and unity in the way those calendars come together. We've had some bumps in the road, but you know, we're all Finn sailors, we'll all work it out. And in the end, what I hope we've got, particularly in the calendar for 2024 in the broader context with all the events, is something that people are going to enjoy and participate in as many events as they can. And that we're being sensitive to the demands, the travelling demands placed on families and supporters, as well as the costs associated with attending those events. Well, we've got, well, you're quite right, Francesca, as it winds down in the Northern Hemisphere, it winds up in the Southern Hemisphere. And obviously, speaking to what's going on in Australia here, usually as these events conclude in Europe, we're just getting going. So over the last, you know, we tend to have our national championships in Australia and my friends in New Zealand in the January-February timeframe, and bookended with that is usually a whole series of domestic, regional, or district events either side of that. So, you know, our big events, for example, in Australia, we have a national championship, we have a winter championship in June in Queensland, which is the state championships of Queensland. We had that in July. We had over 40 boats there, which is one of the bigger fleets that we've had. We had close to 40 boats at our nationals. And this year, our nationals is in a venue called Davies Bay, in January, which is a fantastic yacht club, has a domestic fleet there of about 15 Finns now. Great work by the team in Victoria and the Australian team in building that fleet from nothing over the last 18 months. And we are expecting 50 plus boats, Kiwi visitors, and other international visitors. I think we've got some Norwegians, some Poms, English people, coming to that regatta. So it will have a bit of an international flavour. You know, we will be actively racing right through till April time next year before we head into the colder months in Australia. And those of us think about coming to Europe next year. Oh, this is an interesting one. Phil Chadwick, who is the president of the class locally, and David Ball, the class secretary, took it upon themselves to really push the under-23 bandwagon. And the way they did that was that the class has approximately, and I'll probably get this slightly wrong, 80 members here. And basically they did a lot of fundraising to generate some money towards supporting an under-23 sailor to go to the Silver Cup. We then ran a selection process for that sailor and sent somebody to the Silver Cup. But, you know, it wasn't, you know, apart from Hayden Barney went to the Silver Cup and had a fantastic time, and I think loves the Finn class, and we love having Hayden sailing with us on a regular basis. What just announcing that program has done is fueled a whole lot of interest with other young sailors who've gone, yeah, I'd like to come and race you guys. Even some of our better laser sailors are thinking of and have and are wanting to do more fin sailing, because it's just a different style of racing. And let's be frank, we're funny guys and girls, and you know, we're great to be around, obviously. So who wouldn't want to hang out with fin sailors all weekend? I mean, for laser sailors, they get to meet real people. It's fantastic. So, you know, I think the momentum, you know, all credit to the Australian Association, the momentum has started, and now we're seeing more and more younger people wanting to have a go at the fin. And, you know, whether they buy a boat or not, that's not really the objective. The fact is they want to come racing. We'll find them a boat. They want to come racing. They quite fancy having a go at being a junior world champion in the fin class. They appreciate the history of the boat. They appreciate what it means to be a fin sailor, which is something very special. And we're looking to, the class locally is looking to fund them and support them going to the Junior World Championship in whatever form that takes. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, that may well be the Fin Gold Cup, which would be an amazing experience for any sailor. My personal aspiration is that, you know, we send two next year from Australia. Clearly that's a burden, but let's see if we can do it. And, you know, I'd encourage every other association. You know, we're not the biggest, but everyone else should be doing something similar. Now, you know, that's a very controversial statement. Every fleet's in a different situation. But, you know, pro rata, if 80 can deliver two, then what can everyone else do? And as I said, the most important thing is that they have an amazing experience. And whether it's getting that spot to go to the Silver Cup, what it's really about is creating an impression in young minds that fin sailing is a cool thing to do, fin sailors are cool people, and they run great events. Whether they come back fin sailing when they're 30, or whether they come back fin sailing when they're 40 or 50, or whether it's when they're a legend, it doesn't matter. What matters is we continue to, you know, propagate the value of the brand amongst other people, young people that wouldn't necessarily be racing in the fleet right now. And I think that's so important for sustainability of the class. Invitational events for young people in Europe is a lot easier proposition than invitational global events where you've got such, you know, challenging and expensive travel arrangements to put in place. You know, we've got some great people that operate charter boats in the fleet, so we've got no problem with that. But we do have we do have a problem. We do have a problem. Whether you want to let this out or not, Francesca, I don't know. But my view is, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd pick another marquee class like the Star class and work together with them on their under 30 initiative. Now, whether it's their under 30 initiative or their under 40 initiative, I don't know. But we have to have new people across a spectrum of age groups wanting to take up fin sailing. Right now, if you're over 40 or over 50, I think we have a very healthy pipeline of people that want to explore fin sailing. When we start getting to the low 40s and the 30s and the 20s, the pipeline thins out. That's what we've got to work on. And to me, why is that important? Well, it's important because in 20 years' time, I'm going to be 78. And, I'd love to think that I'm going to be fin sailing, but I know a whole group of me and my mates that are of a similar age probably won't be. We may well be injured. We may well be just watching from the sidelines. And unless we're continuing to fill the funnel across that spectrum of age groups, the class will not sustain itself. And right now, the class is booming. It's going great guns. Builders are busy. People are joining. They're racing. They're training. It's fantastic. We just want to keep it going. Whether it's growing, I don't know. But let's keep it going at the current rate at the very least. First started fin sailing in 1982. And I'm still doing it now. I love it. What else are you going to do? I don't think I'm unique. I started when I was 16 years of age, and I got hooked hanging out with these older dudes, as well as the UK Olympic guys, who were, as far as I was concerned, gods at the time. But there you were in the dinghy park racing those guys, and that experience, I'll never forget the camaraderie, the friendships, the people that I think about are no longer with us that I miss, and the fun we had, which was just, eye-opening for me as a 16-year-old. It was unbelievable. And most of my mates are fin sailors. We grew up together. What a great thing to be doing that for your whole life. It's overwhelming. And look, it's funny, because I look back at it and go, I like to think that every decade has a bit of a character to it. And for me, when I look at my fin sailing and analysing myself, in the 80s, I had, I like to think I had a bit of talent, but I couldn't deal with it all myself. In the 90s, I probably wasted the first half of the 90s from a sailing perspective, not from a family perspective. But I guess if you're going to put some one-liners around that, the 80s, my eyes were opened as to what it meant to be good, and my frustration was high because I couldn't get myself there. That was interesting. But I met some amazing people who were still sailing. Stuart Childley, who's so often our race officer these days, was a big rival in the UK. But you run into people like Peter Peat, Thomas Schmidt, Larry Lemieux. All these people are still around. Not necessarily fin sailing. John Greenwood, he's still around. All sorts of interesting people are still around. We've been going round and round and round and round for years. It's quite amazing. I guess that looking back and going, well, wow, it's the 80s. It's mind-boggling to think how long ago that is now. The 90s for me were really interesting because I am English and Australian, more Australian than English these days. But I think we all shared a sense of frustration as Englishmen back in the late 80s, early 90s, that we never really did that well at fin sailing for a long period of time, despite the fact that Stuart was, is a Hall of Famer in the class. It really was only Stuart and to a lesser extent Lawrence Crispin, still going, that were the stars of the show. But the pride that I take is, in seeing Team GBR emerge at the end of the 90s, was really, it's quite pleasing to see the turnaround of UK sailing to what it is today. And for me, if you ask me to think about one thing from the 90s, I'd go, you know what, we went from nowhere. My last competitive regatta as an Englishman was 1998 Europeans in Villamora. And I think in the last race, the English, including myself, we finished 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think Ian Percy had a bad race. I think he was 8th in that race, Ian. And we looked at each other and went, well, that hasn't happened in a long time, like forever. We must be doing something right. And obviously, Ian's success, Ben's success, but the volume of people that were around them, the Andrew Millses, the Andrew Simpsons, the Dave Mellors, the Richard Stenhouses, the Jamie Lyons, all these guys that came through. It wasn't just one sailor. The sort of British team concept had been born, and it was a very different machine from then on, under the guidance of John Derbyshire and Rod Carr. To me, that the 90s, I look at my career in the 90s and go, well, forget what you did or didn't do. Something amazing happened to UK fin sailing. That was incredible. And the rest is kind of, from an Olympic perspective, history. Unfortunately for me, I didn't go fin sailing after that for 10 years until I was in Wallara Dinghy Park one day. Well, I wasn't in Wallara Dinghy Park one day. I was in Brisbane coaching my son, who, against my wishes, Joe McMillan, my elder son, took up fin sailing, or took up laser sailing, I should say. I didn't want to go anywhere near sailing. And he said, well, would you please stop coaching me, Dad, because you're a pain in the behind. Why don't you go and buy a fin? Because you keep telling me you used to be quite good at it. I said, well, there's no fin sailing in Australia to speak of. And someone pointed me in the direction of this guy, Brendan Casey. And for those of you who know, Brendan went to the London Olympics for Australia. But in 2008, Brendan was frustrated because he wasn't going to Beijing and Anthony Nossiter was. And, there I was, all 155 kilos of me, languishing, sitting this huge overweight man sitting there berating his son about his laser sailing. And Brendan said, well, you should go fin sailing again. I've got a fin for sale. And I remember contemplating the biggest challenge was going to be finding a life jacket that would go around me. I was so enormous. Anyway, Brendan convinced me to buy a fin. I bought a fin, and I guess apart from knee injuries and a few back injuries, I haven't looked back, and I've lost a lot of weight. And I'd say that Brendan and the fin community saved my life, because at 155 kilos and flying a desk 70 hours a week, I don't think I'd be around today if I'd continued to live life like that. I tip my hat to Brendan every time I see him or speak to him, and I tell everyone that Brendan Casey is the guy that saved my life, which is, how I feel about it. And, for me, I was very proud to see Brendan go to the Olympics in 2012. It was, for me, a pleasure to be with him on the journey, sailing around Europe with him and having a lot of fun with him and his coach, John Bertrand, along the way, who'd been an idol of mine as a kid in the 80s. That was kind of cool. And then, I've carried on since then. What can I say? I hung around some really great fin sailors in the 2010s to 2020s, and in Europe with Ed Wright and others. That was very, very entertaining, and had the pleasure of working with the Japanese before Tokyo, which was great, before COVID came along, as their coach. it has been a very different ride over the last few years. Um, and here I am at 58. I think I'm a grandmaster. I like to think I'm not a master. I like to think I'm still a youth, uh, much to my wife's dismay. Um, but you know, I aspire to sail the boat like a 30-year-old, and you know, I don't, but I can still aspire to do so, and that's what I do. 4 days a week, I sail, and I've got a great group of guys that want to go sailing, and we hang out and dream about being fin sailors. I don't call it a career, Francesca. It's just been, well, it's just been life. It's a life lived in a fin. Well, I am. This year was a bit. This year I was intending to come to Europe. It's a bit disappointing. At Garda, I wasn't very fit or practiced, to be honest, last year at the Gold Cup, and I was a bit overweight, which for me in recent times, which is a bit disappointing. I wasn't really happy with how I sailed, but it didn't get any better. I actually put more weight on, and at Christmas, although I wasn't sailing particularly well, I didn't think I managed to win the nationals, and I won the OK nationals as well. But then packing the boats away after the OK nationals, I fell off the trailer. I was up on the third level of a triple trailer and unfortunately fell off it, and it didn't do my knee any good. Uh, so I kind of injured myself, but it has enabled me to spend a bit of time getting the weight back off and getting back into shape. Um, so this year, my plan at the moment is certainly to do Aarhus and certainly to do the Europeans. Um, so Gold Cup, Europeans, and budget and time permitting, Punta Ala. But as some of you, as you know, Francesca, um, I have a young son who is quite demanding of my time with respect to supporting his sailing dreams, which unfortunately are on a foiling windsurfer. Um, although he has sailed a fin, which is probably is the only good thing he's ever done. But apart from that, he's a terrible young man, and he likes windsurfing. That's just disgraceful. But he, he has been out in a fin once or twice. Good on him. But yeah, I have to help him with the windsurfing as he tries to qualify for the Olympics. So that will probably take up most of what I'd call European spring. And then, after Marseille or Paris, I'm free to do my own sailing again.